what is MPLS? Is it Minneapolis, St. Paul? No. Is it the Los Angeles Lakers' New Jersey? No. Or the Manny Pacquiao Light Show? No. Or how about Mr. Peanut's Love Shack? No, it's not that either. Or Master P's Llama Salon? What it is, it's multi-protocol label switching. It's far less interesting than a llama salon, but it's pretty important in your business. How it works is you've got your site 1 and your site 2. And we've got our network here, and we've got a couple other customers floating around here. The reason that they call it label switching is that each one of these links has a logical label. I could spend half an hour telling you how that label's assigned, but when it comes down to it, it's actually a number. So these routers know how to get from one site to another. And what they do is they create a series of labels that create a path over the network. So that's the path switching attribute. So your example packet to site 2 starts with 19, 20, 21, and then there's your data. So it's going to take link 19 first. Then it's going to take that 19 off because it just traveled that. Look at it and go, oh, 20. Then it's going to take that 20 off in Birmingham, and it looks and goes, oh, link 21 out of Birmingham. And then at the other site, we remove the 21, and there's that data packet of yours. And the reason we do that way is because practically all of our customers tend to use the same address space. There's something like 16 million private IPs that you could be using. And I almost guarantee you that you're either using 192.168.0 or 192.168.1. I mean, I'd be willing to place cash bets. So, if you've got 12 192.168.0.1s in your routing table, you'll need something like this in order to scalably determine which customer it should go to, because you sure as heck don't want it going to Jones Insurance. They also used 192.168.0.1. So how does this compare to a traditional VPN setup? Well, in many corporations, what they do is they buy VPN appliances at every site, and then they point them back at a big one at the primary. So you'll have one link, one link, one link, and they all come back to the primary. This has some advantages, namely, it's relatively simple to configure. A lot of these appliances, you have to do little more than just plug in the IP address at the other end and tell it what internal IPs are over here, and it does the rest. And it's comparatively inexpensive. You get whatever cheap internet you can come upon and throw one on and call it a day. But that does have a downside. You've got your site-to-site traffic has to go through the primary site. And maybe you're a restaurant with a corporate headquarters and you don't care if, McDonald's 3 can talk to McDonald's store 27. It doesn't really matter. They just got to be able to talk to headquarters. But a lot of companies have internal communications like IP phones and other things that do need to go directly from one site to another. If you have a centralized firewall, say you want to put one firewall up that routes everything for the company, sets up all the, content filtering, the virus scanning, things like that, and you don't want to buy a ton of these and put them at every site and then log into each one because now the boss wants YouTube blocked. I have to go into 14 of them and go block it here, block it in St. Louis, block it in Mississippi. You say, okay, well, I'll get one big firewall and link everyone to it. The problem with that in this setup is you're going to need twice as much bandwidth here at the head site, because all your packets have to go from your satellite office to the primary site, then out the primary site to the internet, then back then back to the satellite office. And the primary site becomes a single point of failure for your entire company. You lose power here, here's your McDonald's franchise in St. Louis, bye. So you try to make it redundant. Okay, for a few sites it might be reasonable, although it does look ugly. Have a few more. And you quickly see this becomes an unmanageable mess. So this is where MPLS comes in. What you do is you buy it from us, or technically other people. I'm sure there are other companies that sell MPLS. But I don't know. Ours is the best. I've never needed to use anything else. And so in our case, you can put your firewall, you can either run your own in our data center, or we have a hosted firewall product that's got the software and hardware redundancies built in, and you're just using a partition on it. If you have business needs that go beyond that, you're concerned about site redundancy, like, hey, well, yeah, you put your equipment in one site, clear rate for our firewall, and you may have a huge network, but what if that one site goes down? We do have options to do geographically diverse firewalling. It costs a bit more, but it's technically possible. We have the VMware product that George has spoken about. We can put that inside your MPLS network. And this is where the no data transfer cost comes in really handy. If you want to put a file server in the cloud, because a lot of places, they put a big file server here at the primary site, and all these little remote sites got to go and grab files from here. Well, that's going to take a lot of bandwidth right here. But if you buy a virtual machine from us, put your file system here in our cloud, and then all the sites talk to it instead, that takes some bandwidth load off of you. It cuts latency for everyone except the headquarters, and can provide a more reliable user experience for you. It's got some advantages. It's available for practically any connectivity we sell. So a lot of providers will say, well, you have to have a fiber or you have to get it on T1. I have VDSL customers using it. I've actually offered a dial-up port into someone's MPLS network before. Almost every product we sell has an option to integrate into MPLS if necessary. And we handle all the routing. You know, we're an ISP, we do routing all day long. If there's anything we're good at, it's that. So if you have challenges, like at a subnet mask and your eyes go cross-eyed, that's fine. We'd be more than happy to help. And let's say you're a little more technically inclined, we're not going to keep the training wheels on. We've got static and dynamic routing protocols available. Let's say you want to use a second MPLS provider as if they exist, or you have internal building site-to-site communications that you want us to back up or whatever. You can use these dynamic routing protocols to see if our network's up, which it always is. You never have to worry about it. And maybe you're going to balance bandwidth or any other thing you could be doing. Once we give you the keys, you could decide, I'll announce this route here 1 week, this route here another. Maybe you have a little traveling lab that you take around to show people. As soon as you plug it into your network, it comes up in OSPF or something, and then the corporate network routes back to it. Maybe you want to create a disaster recovery cart with servers on it. Drag them over to the new site, plug it in. With the MPLS dynamic product, you can do that. The pros, the primary site, when you do this, becomes just another site. There's nothing special about this building except it's where the important people sit, right? So, if your firewalls, your data services are in our cloud, like an Exchange or any of that, that site could go completely offline. I know some people are like, well, hey man, I got a generator, I got UPS, we got this under control. And I'll tell you, that's great until the fire marshal shows up and says, shut that generator off. We've got a fire elsewhere in the building. And he's got a fire axe in his hand, so my suggestion is you do what he says. then you don't have a headquarters anymore. So disaster recovery, sometimes you have to take that stuff into account. Maybe you keep your primary server there, but you keep a DFS peer in our data center. Centralized firewall, we can make it as redundant as you need it to be. And the most important part, keeping our electronics, our software, everything up to date is an actual job role that belongs to somebody here. I know a lot of people, they're like, man, I gotta go change the fuser on this printer. I should really update that firmware on that VPN appliance I bought for $100, by the way, because I know there was some sort of exploit, and I don't know, I've been watching the news and it's some acronym, and but you never get around to updating that, right? Because once that fuser is fixed, you've got another printer that's not working or only prints in wingdings or God knows what. We take care of that for you. We have weekly maintenance windows where we're going over every piece of equipment we have, and we're making sure that we take a redundant peer offline, upgrade it, switch it over, upgrade that. We've got George and his team updating our VMware stacks, things like that. We keep it up to date for you, and it becomes our problem. There's cons. And again, this is another example of where it's kind of a con to you, but not to me. The provider tends to have to be the primary network connectivity for the sites. There's some exceptions to this, but you really don't want to pay for a service that has all the advanced quality of service, reliability, failover stuff, but then use Comcast for most of it. Because what'd you pay us for then? We do have several third-party network failover options available. We may be able to get you bandwidth practically anywhere, but maybe there's some technical or legal reason you can't. We can work with you on that. We have a site, which I'll get into, where we have a similar situation. So I promised you I'd talk about QoS, and I'm not going to get that deep because, like I was saying to our marketing guy, Jake, you want me to tell him about QoS? You want me to spend one day, two, or just a few minutes? You know, this is a deep enough topic I could talk to you for a day and not tell you everything. But basically, the QoS is where we or you mark the traffic and its level of priority and type. And then we use those markings once the pipe starts getting full to decide who gets to go on the life raft and who doesn't, metaphorically speaking. So we've got your voice, which is well within the, women and children first level of traffic. We've got best effort, captain goes down with the ship. And there's a bunch of stuff in between. There's recommendations and protocol design for things like interactive video, streaming video, mission critical, call signaling, transaction data, network management, bulk data, even scavenger. I think that's for the raccoon that was trying to eat the cable. But in essence, we can tell these routers, this guy's video call is more important than his YouTube transaction, or maybe their YouTube is really actually more important than their video call. Start dropping frames there first. I don't know who does that, but I mean, if you really need to see the latest, Minecraft videos or whatever's on there, maybe that's your thing. So is MPLS superior to VPN? Yes, I'm partial, but it's not delivered over the public internet. Now, I can give you a backup tunnel that's delivered over the public internet, but none of the products we sell by default are putting it over the internet. We're giving you a dedicated partition of a clear rate pipe. So that means that we have the ability to offer QoS over that. So when we control both ends, we can say and enforce your ideas of what's important and not important. Maybe you've decided your ERP system is more important than your voice. It's a little nuts, but we can set the routers to prioritize that. And we offer the predictable, reliable performance. This is a business class product through and through. We're not selling you something that's oversubscribed, heck and gone. We designed our products so that you don't have to call us and we don't have to call you. It's not any better for you than it is for us. In fact, usually people are often just yelling at us, so it's kind of worse, you know. I'd rather be the guy yelling than be the guy on the receiving end of that call. So, quick case study. We have a customer who sells heavy equipment. They have something like, I think they started with 14 sites and acquired another heavy equipment seller and upgraded to something like 21 of them. They had connections from practically everybody. As anyone knows who's gone through a merger, you find everything that the other IT guy did before he was laid off and you took over. That was a lot for them to unravel. And sometimes they're just looking in a book trying to figure out, all right, for this site, who do we call when the internet goes down? So what we wanted to do for them is to streamline their network and simplify it. They had firewalls all over the place, content filters all over the place. You know, the previous owner of this company used one type of spam filter. These guys used another. So they wanted to kind of centralize that, get back to controlling it. Some of them were VPN connections. Some of them were already on our MPLS network with just a T1. You know, so what we offered them, fast, secure, reliable. We offered them broadbeam fiber with 4G LTE failover because they're actually one of the more rugged areas. And we got to get back to failover. What is it worth? Well, when you're a heavy equipment manufacturer, when is it most important for you to be available? In a disaster. Where's those, you know, rear front end loaders, the buckets, everything coming from? They're going to need, you know, tree pickers, man lifts, everything. And if you're not available right after a disaster, that's not good for you, because that's when you're going to be making a ton of money, right? So they have 4G LTE failover as their main failover. I think there was one site where we couldn't get a 4G LTE signal. We installed, I think, a T1. There's always an option. I think one of their sites we might even use a Comcast connection they bought as a backup. Our products for our failover are designed to be very resilient. While they can use the 4G failover, we have so many ways to make something that'll work for your business work. You know, I've got this great flyer here on our failover product. Make sure to grab one. Can't say enough. It's honestly one of my favorite products because not only is it really neat and it helps you, but in many times we're calling you and going, hey, by the way, did you know you're failed over? Don't tell the guy that you're down or not down when he comes to the building, because we're going to dispatch him or we've already sent him out. When he shows up, don't say, go away, we're up. You know, we've had a number of customers in the beginning where we set them up with 2 T1s, and this is, 11 years ago. And they would have one go down. It shows right up in our knock upstairs, big screen, 1 T1 of 2 down. So we contact AT&T and say, hey man, go fix that circuit for him. We forgot to tell the customer. So the guy shows up at the customer site. The customer's like, go away, man, our service is fine. AT&T sends us a bill like, you just wasted our time. And we're like, no, their services are down. And you have to call the customer like, man, did you just turn them away? Why didn't you warn us? We thought you'd call, sorry. We have better processes now. But in the early days, it was so common for us to see the problem before the customer did that a lot of times they never had to know what our number was. So, we want you to take advantage of the backup options we have because it's better for you and it's a lot better for us. We don't want to be yelled at. We don't want you complaining like, oh, you cost me 20 grand. For want of $100, you could have taken care of it, But it's hard to tell someone that when they lost 20 grand. So Zach's pretty good at it, but anyway, I don't know, did I click back or something? So anyway, with that, I'll turn it over to any questions anyone has. And if not, I'll kind of let you get to your drawing here. I know everybody's excited to see who's got the TV. Yeah?
What's going to replace MPLS?
What's going to replace MPLS? It's an interesting question. At this point, because of how adaptable MPLS is to the new technologies, maybe some form of quantum entanglement. I mean, with the way MPLS works, we can do things like Ethernet pseudo-wire. We can actually give you a layer 2 Ethernet path that has labels in front of it. And it's just a 300-mile long Ethernet cable. The versatility of MPLS is insane. I can actually tunnel a T1 over MPLS and deliver it to you as a pretend T1 that actually works and looks and acts and seems, for all intents and purposes, it's a T1. But it's actually being packetized and delivered over our MPLS product. They call it any transport over MPLS.
So SD-WAN?
SD-WAN's an interesting idea. It's kind of a hybrid of MPLS and building, let's see if I can get back to it in time. SD-WAN kind of automates that to a certain extent, which, hey, that's great. I love it when software can do that instead of me. But, would I want this to be the main way that my company works? Probably not. There's a lot of overhead in VPN, which I didn't really go over, but if you have a 1500 byte packet, I now have to encrypt that and throw an IPsec header over it, put an IP header on it, and now your real effective MTU, which is the amount of packet or data you can shove into one packet, ends up going from about 1500 bytes to about 1300. So things like file transfers will actually take a little bit longer over IPsec tunnels because, the ISP is still only going to let you send 1500 bytes. Even if you're encapsulating that, then you have less effective bandwidth to play with. So I do think SD-WAN has a place, and a lot of our products that we sell for failover are based on the kind of stuff that SD-WAN is doing. We're just doing it by hand or with an automated system that we have that generates the configs for us that we developed internally. As that solution matures, we'll probably start moving our failover products to that. Found that a lot of the stuff that does support SD-WAN now is really expensive, which means it's more cost we have to pass on to you. So we're looking at it. As we get customers who need it, we may implement that. But by and large, MPLS is still going to be the most efficient way to deliver those kind of services into the foreseeable future.
Thanks.
Yep. Anyone else? All right. So, thank you.